The 80s were this weird sweet spot where studios greenlit anything with aliens and a pulse, handing shoestring budgets to directors who'd build spaceships from McDonald's trash and film in freezing caves until the cast broke. Audiences wanted Star Wars magic, but what they got instead were space vampires draining London, slug zombies crashing frat parties, and films where the behind-the-scenes chaos felt more dangerous than the monsters. Most of these bombed hard, then spent decades in video store bargain bins waiting for midnight crowds, twisted enough to get it. Lifeforce follows a shuttle crew discovering naked humanoid vampires inside Halley's Comet, bringing them to London where the female drains life force in seductive embraces and spreads a zombie plague that turns the city into flaming chaos. Mathilda May arrived at 18, cast as the wordless space vampire, after director Toby Hooper saw her balletic grace as perfect for a role demanding silent seduction and raw physicality. She spent weeks naked on set, with every movement choreographed like dance amid practical effects, rigs, enduring hours in harnesses for floating sequences that left her skin raw from makeup adhesives. Hooper pushed her into hypnotic states between takes to deepen her otherworldly gaze, blending her real vulnerability with the character's hunger as crew whispered of her discomfort while blue energy pyrotechnics singed nearby performers during the cathedral climax. Fallout typecast her as Nude Siren, May retreating from horror and resurfacing in art house fare, while clips of her draining scenes fueled endless fan edits, turning personal exposure into eternal viral allure. Steve Railsback channeled intensity into Colonel Carlson so deeply he refused to break character, haunting sets with improvised trance walks that unnerved co-stars as Hooper filmed hypnosis scenes with real sessions where Railsback convulsed authentically. Tension peaked when he locked himself in his trailer over script cuts and forced rewrites, while impalement rehearsals saw practical blood rigs malfunction and soak him repeatedly as he screamed unscripted lines. Patrick Stewart joined late, unaware his polite academic would explode into the goriest possession, requiring full body casts as Canon Films' financial spiral slashed budgets mid-shoot, and Hooper improvised gore with fireworks that backfired, singeing Stewart as slime rigs burst, coating his face in take after take. Canon's bankruptcy buried the film in video hell, but Stewart's viral eruption clip propelled him to Picard fame years later, transforming one-off horror splatter into career rocket fuel amid the cult resurrection as the space vampire nightmare that nearly consumed everyone involved. Inseminoid opens with a research team sifting through frozen alien ruins where something ancient decides Sandy's womb makes the perfect incubator for its next generation. When she explores a cavern alone, a hulking creature pins her to the rock floor in an assault that leaves her bleeding on the stone, the sequence unfolding through her point of view as a clear plastic tube filled with green liquid pumps fluid into her body, the transparency revealing every grotesque detail while crew operated the puppet from hidden angles. Judy Geeson endured multiple takes in the freezing claustrophobic space, her bulky suit restricting movement while slime and hydraulics malfunctioned, spraying her repeatedly with cold goo as director Norman J. Warren pushed for raw intensity without cuts. She later described feeling exposed and violated even in fiction, her exhaustion from 3 weeks of cave shoots that overran by 2 days, amplifying the terror as she cycled through screaming fits with barely any rest between them. The production hauled equipment through uneven rock inside the actual Chislehurst caves, where breath steamed in the underground chill and claustrophobia became a genuine presence, injuries piling up from slips on wet stone and collisions with low ceilings. Warren's relationship with actor Robin Clark deteriorated into open warfare, Clark repeatedly arguing over line delivery until Warren finally snapped during a fight scene in front of everyone, their conflict bleeding into performances that never quite synced. The assault scene got censored heavily in the UK for its explicit imagery, fueling moral panics in bands, yet went viral on VHS bootlegs where fans fixated on the tube's lurid mechanics. The film flopped and got buried as cheap alien knockoff trash, but that one cavern nightmare became its defining disturbing legacy, turning Geeson's personal ordeal into the most talked about taboo that still unsettles viewers decades later. Battle Beyond the Stars throws a young farmer named Shad into space hunting mercenaries to defend his peaceful planet from a tyrant's skull-shaped warship. Roger Corman throwing his biggest budget yet at this Star Wars knockoff while James Cameron scrambled to build starships out of literal garbage. Cameron arrived as a model maker but got promoted to handling special effects after the original art director was fired, suddenly responsible for creating an entire fleet during near sleepless weeks of 18-hour days. He built ships from McDonald's containers and egg cartons, spray painting fast food packaging into ribbed alien corridors that somehow looked futuristic under careful lighting, obsessing over every detail through nights where he'd grab a few hours rest before returning to oversee miniature camera setups. The real survival game came from Corman's bizarre inspection ritual where he'd fire people on the spot if he walked in and saw decorators working, assuming they were behind schedule, but liked the exact same sets if he found them empty and quiet. After getting fired and rehired twice, Cameron adapted by posting a lookout to watch for Corman's car in the parking lot, then frantically clearing the crew off stage whenever the boss approached, so half-finished work looked deceptively complete in his eyes. Meanwhile, Bill Paxton worked the same lot as a carpenter, pounding nails and cracking everybody up during brutal 3 and 4 a.m. work calls, keeping morale alive when the frantic schedule could have easily ground everyone down into exhausted silence. The film earned moderate box office without becoming the next Star Wars, but its real value was as the scrappy training ground where Cameron learned to build entire worlds out of scraps, and Paxton became the guy who lightened impossible nights. Both carried that lumberyard ingenuity straight into Aliens years later, while the movie space battle footage got quietly cannibalized into other Corman releases, recycled explosions resurfacing in different films where no shot was ever allowed to belong to just one story. Forbidden World drops troubleshooter Mike Colby onto a remote research station where scientists engineered Subject 20 as a synthetic food source, only to watch it mutate into a slime-dripping predator that dissolves crew members into edible goo. Director Alan Holzman got handed this project on a breakneck 20-day schedule with barely $1 million, forced to reuse sets from Battle Beyond the Stars that were literally still wet with fresh paint as actors walked through them. Holzman later noted people had to watch where they stepped because walls were tacky to the touch during filming, the pace turning the shoot into a sustained sprint where scenes got blocked and captured in hours instead of days. The real bombshell centers on 17-year-old Dawn Dunlap walking into the audition and reportedly expressing comfort performing nude, leading Holzman to immediately champion her for the role of Tracy, despite producers having planned for an older ex-Playboy model. She spent weeks in nude shower scenes and bedroom sequences with Jessie Vint, where her visible youth amplified the vulnerability in ways that feel deeply uncomfortable looking back. And while she turned 18 months after filming, that revelation casts a shadow over sequences heavily marketed as erotic horror. Fox Harris embodied the chain-smoking mad scientist Dr. Timbergen with twitchy energy, ad-libbing rants about bacterial symphonies, and gnawing practical organs coated in toxic dyes during the liver lure climax, his method blending with genuine nausea from grueling 16-hour days. When Holzman reached post-production, he discovered he didn't have enough usable footage of the mutant itself, forcing last-minute reshoots with effects artist John Carl Buechler to frantically add new attacks and fill the gaps. The film tanked and got buried in video store bins as cheap alien ripoff trash, but modern 4K revivals now expose all the seams, paint drips literally frozen mid-frame in some shots, a testament to sprinting through absolute famine where Holzman's vision of introspective sci-fi got drowned in mandated splatter and exploitation that still feels uncomfortably raw. Leviathan traps an undersea mining crew at the bottom of the Atlantic where they discover a sunken Soviet freighter hiding a genetic experiment and vodka bottles, leading to a mutation outbreak that fuses bodies into tentacle nightmares while their corporate boss stalls evacuation from her office above. The production had a healthy $25 million budget and major studio backing, but actors spent endless days sealed into custom-built dive suits that weighed a fortune and restricted movement so completely that once someone toppled over, it took an entire squad to haul them upright. Hector Elizondo later recalled the suits were impossibly hot even with built-in fans, leaving actors drenched in sweat and on the edge of heat exhaustion by the end of each 12-hour day. Director George Cosmatos ran the set with a loud, exacting style that demanded numerous takes while giving performers relatively little guidance on their actual performances. And Daniel Stern frequently clashed with him over what he saw as unreasonable demands, arguments escalating to the point where some thought they might actually come to blows. Ernie Hudson described Cosmatos years later as the most politically incorrect person he'd ever worked with, recalling harsh, unfiltered remarks that could leave the entire set in uncomfortable silence. Meanwhile, Stan Winston's effects team worked under brutal pressure to build both the evolving creature and all those expensive dive suits, with Winston clashing with Cosmatos from day one over how much monster to show, the two arguing until Cosmatos literally stormed out. Winston eventually got second unit directing responsibilities to shoot creature sequences himself. But once that footage went through editing, the monster almost never appears in sustained clear shots, just quick flashes that deeply disappointed effects, artists who'd spent months on intricate details. The biggest lasting irritation remains Ernie Hudson's character, Jones getting abruptly killed by falling wreckage after surviving the entire deep-sea nightmare, a death Hudson strongly disagreed with and still mentions at conventions, feeling it made zero sense for the most decent crew member to get snuffed out as a cheap last-second gag. Galaxy of Terror sends a starship crew to the planet Morganthus, where a massive alien pyramid reads their minds and manifests their deepest fears as personalized nightmares that kill them one by one. James Cameron initially arrived for special effects work, but approached Roger Corman to pick up filming as second unit director when the schedule slipped, ending up directing all the death scenes, including the notorious moment where crew member Demia gets attacked by a gigantic maggot and footage staged with a disturbingly sexualized edge. Cameron adjusted lighting obsessively as the actors performed near naked under harsh lights, repeatedly grappling with a heavy clammy prop while he tweaked shadows to emphasize the creature's mass and give the impression it was truly enveloping its victim. The maggot's foam body got slathered in slime and manipulated by multiple puppeteers, any mistimed movement ruining takes and forcing resets in sticky cold conditions. Meanwhile, Sid Haig's character Querhad stands out as a nearly wordless warrior, but that silence wasn't in the original script. Haig got handed dialogue he felt was flat and cliched, walked into a meeting and said he'd prefer not to say it, and they agreed to rewrite Querhad entirely, stripping away most words and letting him exist as pure physical presence. Haig leaned into controlled body language that turned the character into a living weapon whose thoughts remained completely opaque, his death by his own returning crystals becoming more potent because of that revolt. The maggot scene became the single most talked about moment, cited as the ultimate example of New World pushing exploitation boundaries into genuinely uncomfortable territory, and sharpening debates about how women get treated in genre cinema. For Cameron, it served as a workshop for orchestrating creature attacks he'd apply to aliens years later, proving a few miserable days on a small soundstage can echo through film history far longer than anyone sweating through it ever imagined. Galaxina takes place in the year 3008 aboard the space police cruiser Infinity, where android servant Galaxina spends a 27-year journey alone reprogramming herself to feel emotions and fall in love with the frozen first officer Thor. Dorothy Stratten stepped into the title role fresh off being named 1980 Playboy Playmate of the Year, her luminous presence anchoring director William Sachs' sci-fi spoof with robotic poise and emerging warmth. She arrived on the low-budget set eager to prove genuine acting chops beyond the centerfold, spending hours in makeup each day while navigating scenes that blended comedy, action, and the casual nudity expected in this kind of production. The shoot's surface cheer masked much darker currents, though, as Stratten was balancing filming with an increasingly volatile relationship with her husband, Paul Snider, whose jealousy and rage were building as her star rose through Playboy and Hollywood, while he felt left behind and losing control. Offset, she quietly confided in friends about feeling trapped between the wholesome image being built around her and Snyder's possessive grip that was tightening, yet she somehow poured all that quiet tension into Galaxina's arc of self-liberation, making moments like when the android disables her own defensive systems feel achingly personal. Tragedy shattered everything in August 1980 when Snyder murdered Stratten in their Los Angeles home, just after the film's completion but before wide release, turning what was supposed to be her breakout performance into a devastating swan song. The film flopped commercially in the immediate aftermath and got dedicated to her memory in some prints, yet her ethereal android performance endures in cult viewings where fans dissect how her real-life fragility somehow amplified the fiction she was creating on camera. What played as lighthearted parody now carries the unbearable weight of a young life violently cut short at 20. Stratton's final role becoming a viral emblem of beauty, trying desperately to claim agency, but running out of time, proving how a single act of violence can transform campy sci-fi into something far more haunting than anyone ever intended. Earth Girls Are Easy drops 3 furry neon-colored aliens into Los Angeles manicurist Valerie's backyard hot tub after their spaceship crashes, leading her and salon co-workers to shave off their pelts and discover hunky human forms underneath. Gina Davis dove into the role with infectious energy, but her salon transformation scenes demanded hours each morning, watching makeup artists shave, wax, and paint co-stars Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, and Jeff Goldblum to reveal human skin beneath alien fur. Davis later talked about the daily ritual, laughing about how she'd watch Carrie endure genuinely painful depilation every morning and somehow turn that real discomfort into improvisational comedy gold that bled into their dance rehearsals. Director Julian Temple arrived fresh off Sex Pistols documentaries with a vision of punk glam satire skewering 80s excess, but clashed hard with producers demanding more sex appeal over his weird whimsy. Temple fought reshoots and smuggled subversive cuts past executives who axed darker alien angst for brighter beats, while set vibes soured as test screenings tanked and forced pickups where Temple seethed over inserted nudity undercutting his musical vision. Carrey's exhaustion from rubber suit hell and homesickness fueled meltdowns during dance numbers where he'd trash props before channeling rage into party anarchy, Davis intervening in one blow-up to pull him back as crew whispered of firing him mid-shoot. Carey had auditioned with feral intensity, rampaging the room in full fur and howling improvised alien grief until producers recast him as the manic Zebo. But on set, that volatile energy nearly derailed everything. The box office bomb exiled Temple temporarily and stalled Carey's rise, but VHS cult status vindicated the quirks as clips went viral pre-internet via tape trades, foreshadowing Carey's elastic genius. Beneath the bubbly tunes lurks his near-breakdown origin, a rage-fueled audition birthing the fool who partied Earth into submission, while the director's war with Studio Gloss created a hybrid oddity that masked battles, nearly derailing the whole Alien Invasion musical. Night of the Creeps unleashes alien slugs that turn a college town into a zombie apocalypse, forcing nerdy pledges and a grizzled detective to battle with flamethrowers as victims twitch back with guttural greetings. Fred Dekker penned it as a love letter to 50s B-movies, shopping the script for years before a low-budget pickup forced him to direct amid actor walkouts and rain-soaked nights. Jason Lively endured 12-hour makeup resets after slug kisses glued parasites mid-take, Lively puking from latex fumes while Dekker screamed for takes through thunderstorms as Jill Whitlow clashed with him over skimpy outfits. Tom Atkins arrived as Detective Cameron, channeling gritty cop energy, but pneumonia floored him mid-shoot, forcing IV drips between shotgun blasts as Dekker begged union waivers to keep him working. Atkins powered through rain-lashed nights, coughing blood during flashback scenes where real grief over lost roles bled into his performance, even exploding props and unscripted fury Dekker kept for authenticity. He chain-smoked through blackouts, yet mentored Lively, forging father-son vibes that anchored the chaos as zombies gnawed ankles lived during horde sequences. The practical slugs malfunctioned constantly, bursting mid-kiss and spraying actors with ammonia goo that blistered skin during marathon reshoots, while pledge extras brawled genuinely over zombie pecking order, with fists flying as Dekker filmed the melee for horde authenticity. Lively broke a rib, dodging a rogue slug rig, and Whitlow fled, set hysterically, after one crawled unscripted up her leg. The chaos escalating when non-union zombies mutinied over gore delays, and Dekker fired half, recasting with homeless locals who overacted hilariously and birthed the viral Yo mania. The film flopped and got exiled to VHS glory but haunts Scream lore as the uncredited blueprint, with fan conventions reviving tales of near mutiny, pneumonia battles, and slug explosions that fueled its undead charm, proving the most beloved cult films are born from productions barely held together by desperation and a director willing to film real chaos when the budget ran out and the zombies started fighting back.